So, hello students, in this video we are going to review our concept of independence and define one new concept which is called conditional independence. Let us start with a review. So, we will start our review with the notion of conditional probability which we have studied in last week. So, as you know, if probability of B is not equal to 0, we can define conditional probability, and for any event A, conditional probability given B is given by probability of A intersection B upon probability of B. Now this conditional probability, when I denote as a function over sets, is it in itself a probability measure, or it satisfies all the conditions of probability, axiomatic definition of probability. So based on this, we said that we can study probabilities in terms of conditional probabilities. Then we defined a notion of independence. In order to define the notion of independence, we rearranged these A intersection B probabilities and wrote this expression into this form, where this one is coming from this equation and the next one automatically follows provided probability of A is greater than 0 if I want to write B given A, probability of B given A. But if I generally want to write A intersection B and probability of A is 0, then this measure is not at all of our interest. So because probability of A is equal to 0, this is well defined. Okay. Then we understood something called law of total probability, LTP, which actually partitions the sample space into disjoint sets. In this case, I have taken the disjoint sets to be A and A complement, and then I have written the law of total probability. This is important. And then finally in the last week we saw Bayes theorem, which is given by this, and you know AIs form partition of a sample space I equal to 1 to n, and they are supposed to be the causes and B is the effect. So we are actually finding cause effect relationship. Given that the effect is observed, what is the cause? That it is what is it that AI caused it, and what is the probability that AI caused it. This is what the crux of Bayes theorem was. So we have all our tools for our disposal. This is law of total probability. This is theorem on total probability, TTP. Sorry, this is multiplication rule. I'm sorry, law, instead of law of total probability I use the word theorem on total probability. So let me write it here, theorem on total probability, and this one is multiplication rule. We have seen extensions of multiplication rule and law of total theorem on total probability also, right? So let us make this understanding very clear, because we want to deal with conditionally independent events. So to make this understanding clear, let us take an example of a 3 tosses of a coin. This coin is not fair coin, so a head comes with probability P and tail comes with probability 1 minus P, which is 1 minus probability of tail. So probability of tail is equal to 1 minus P. Now since you are learning probability, you should be very comfortable with these kind of notions. So in that case, because there are 3 tosses, I can use a sequential representation of a sample space and enlist all the outcomes. Okay. Now because the coin is not fair and P is chosen, so we want to answer the question, what is the probability that this thing will happen? That is head, tail, tail. A sequence of head, tail, tail should occur. So how will we find? It's very easy. Now remember, when I am plotting this sequential diagram, what I am writing on the branch, in the middle of the branch, is conditional probability. Okay. So what is the probability of head is P and probability of tail is 1 minus P. Okay. Similarly, once head is obtained, probability of head is P and tail is 1 minus P, and so on. So now I just need to go along the branch and see where this outcome has happened. So first outcome is H, so I am fixing my branch here. second outcome is tail, so I am fixing my branch here, and then the third outcome is again tail, so this is the branch, and I got this to this outcome, HTT. So what are the corresponding probabilities? Apply multiplication rule. 1 minus p into 1 minus p, so 1 minus p square into p. So I already know the answer using the sequential representation. Now the question is asked, which is somewhat distinct from the earlier question, that is probability of one tail. So what rule I used in the first case? It was purely a multiplication rule that I used. What is probability of one tail? So there are two ways to handle this. You can start from the entire sample space and get the outcomes which have exactly one tail. Remember our discussion when we were defining the probability. In conventional notation, one tail simply means exactly one tail. So always remember this interpretation. Now let us go and identify the outcomes that have single tail. Okay. So the first outcome is not there, but the second one is there. The third one is also there. Fourth one has two tails. Fifth one is there. 6, 7, none of them. Okay. So I have three outcomes that have a single tail. Yeah. So what is the probability of this single tail? How many outcomes in total are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 3 by 8. Yeah, that's the outcome. No, it can't be 3 by 8 because my probabilities are not uniformly distributed. That is, it is not half-half. It's not a fair coin. So let us compute this. What are the outcomes? So I know what is let us see all these three outcomes and compute their probabilities. So in this case, again I will use multiplication rule, which is tail, head, head. So tail will occur in this branch with probability 1 minus p, and head will occur in this branch with probability p, and another head will occur in this branch with probability p, so p square. So if you look at all these outcomes clearly, closely, you will have a similar representation. So what, and then I will combine over them, right? So what is it? It will be 3 times 1 minus p into p square. So here what I did, why I combined? Because I have to sum over all of them. So here is the application of theorem on total probability plus multiplication rule. Okay. So this is the probability. 3 times p 1 minus p into p square. Had p been half, you would have got it to be equal to 3 by 8. That's what I wrote earlier. Okay. So now let us go to the third problem, which is one toss, which is tail. Probability that the first toss is tail, given that there is one tail. Okay. So now here is the notion of conditional probability. So let us see, first toss is a tail given that there is only one tail. That means there are three outcomes, and among them the first toss should be tails, that is this outcome. So naturally, if you look at this sample space, the probability should be equal to 1 by 3. Now we can use our notion of conditional probability as a probability. This is conditional probability as a probability. Now you use the general global probability that is defined over here, and you can come up with an answer like this probability of this event is 1 minus p into p square upon the event, probability of the event that one toss is a tail. Among all three outcomes, one toss is a tail. So that is 3 times 1 minus p into p square, and if you go with this expression, then this is in fact equal to 1 upon 3. Okay, so now in this case I have implicitly used Bayes theorem if I am using this interpretation. Because I computed this one tail using theorem on total probability, I already had the answer and I have used Bayes theorem. Correct. So this is an application of Bayes theorem. Okay. So now we have revised our basics. We know what is conditional probability, and from the conditional probability we have also defined the notion of independence of two events. So independence of two events, we say two events A and B defined on the same sample space omega are independent if probability of B given A is equal to probability of B. Note that this itself suffices to write probability of A intersection B is equal to probability of A into probability of B, and that in turn implies probability of A given B is equal to probability of A. So the relation is symmetric in nature, and based on these events we can define the independence of two events, and whenever all such events satisfy the condition, we say they are pairwise independent. Okay, now but this notion, as we have seen in the last video through examples, that this notion doesn't suffice for considering the entire independence. For that we need a new notion called mutually independent events, where we have been given a collection of events and you are asked to find every subcollection of this, whether it satisfies this property or not. Every subcollection of events a1, a2, an, if it satisfies this property for k is equal to 2, 3 and so on up to n, then we say the events are mutually independent. And when you are considering a mutually independent set, if you are taking conditional probabilities, they don't play any role. This is the beauty of that mutual independence. However, if there is a pairwise independence, as I demonstrated in the last video, and there is no mutual independence, then we need to work with a concept called conditional independence, and that I will explain right away. So conditioning affects independence. This is my claim, and I will demonstrate the claim through Venn diagram. Let us say there are three events A, B and C, and from the data I know A and B are independent. Now event C overlays these events in this form. So if you look at the diagram, event C actually overlays like this. That simply means if you restrict your universe to the set C, then A and B are disjoint events, because if you look at the set where A intersection C intersected with B intersection C, that is equal to empty set. So they are actually mutually exclusive events, but A and B themselves are independent events. Now the question is probability of A intersection B given C same as probability of A given C into probability of B given C? The answer is no, because if A and B are disjoint events, so now I know A and B, these are disjoint events. So in fact probability of A intersection B intersection C, all this will contribute to A intersection B intersection C is empty. A intersection B intersection C is empty set, so this probability is 0. But if you look at the diagram, probability of A given C it's strictly greater than 0 because this much area is covered over here, and probability of B given C is also strictly greater than 0. Okay, therefore probability of A given C into probability of B given C is greater than 0. Therefore this equality cannot hold true, because this in fact is equal to 0 and both of them are greater than 0. So this inequality cannot hold true. This is how conditioning affects independence. To demonstrate this concept, let me go further with one example of two biased coins A and B. There are two biased coins A and B and they are severely biased. For example, coin A is biased in such a way that if you choose coin A, probability of heads is 0.9, and if you choose coin B, probability of heads is 0.1. Now among these two coins, the choice is equally likely to happen because they look alike and they are equally likely to be chosen. So now we are facing one question, that is, once we know that it is coin B, are the tosses independent? The question is, once we know it is coin B, are the tosses independent? That means I know I have chosen coin B. Now will it affect whether what is the probability of head when coin A is there? No. So coin B itself will run on its own. So the tosses are independent when we know it is coin B. So the answer to this question is yes. Okay. In absence of any knowledge about the coin being chosen, are the tosses independent? To answer this question, let us consider these two probabilities. Probability that toss 6 is a head. Okay. So now you actually know that either coin A will be chosen or coin B will be chosen. Both of them are equally likely to happen. Once we know the coin, then the tosses are independent. So I am dealing with independent and conditional independence also together. So once we know the so let me demonstrate it through a diagram here. So here is a main experiment, coin A and coin B. So this is coin A, which is but they are equally likely to be chosen. Once coin A is chosen, so this is coin A, this is coin B. Head occurs with probability 0.9 and tail occurs with probability 0.1. Here head occurs with probability 0.1 and tail occurs with probability 0.9. Okay, so now is the interesting thing. So in the next branch of this, head will occur with probability 0.9 and 0.1 HT, and all other outcomes alike. Here also HT, sorry, this is 0.1, I made a mistake, this is 0.1 and this is 0.9. Okay, good. So now if you continue this branch till toss 6, there is no issue in that because these events are actually independent, given that I have chosen a coin A. So now the question is, what is our probability that toss 6 is equal to H? In this case, first I need to distinguish between whether coin A is chosen or coin B is chosen. So that way, so suppose first I am considering coin A, that will be with probability half. If it is coin A, what happens to these tosses is independent. So that will not affect the computation of my probability. What happens at toss 6 will matter. So I will just simply write this into 0.9 plus half into, that is, this half belongs to coin B. So what is the probability of heads in this? It's 0.1. So now if you are not sure how toss 6 is equal to heads, will not have any influence of previous 5 tosses, just pause the video, do explicit computation of conditional probabilities, because and use the knowledge that the events are independent. So in this case the probability of 6 toss being head is again half. Okay, this is the beauty. Though both the coins are severely biased, the biases are arranged accordingly in such a manner that the answer resultant is not showing any kind of evidence of a bias. Okay, so if you are not comfortable for choosing toss 6, you can choose it to be toss 1, still the answer will be same. Then you can go ahead and choose toss let us say toss 2, toss 3, toss 4 and continue like this. The essence is there is an independence when you are given the coin. Now let us come to this particular structure. This will be an interesting to compute probability. So now I have been given that toss 6 is heads, and I also know that the first 5 tosses are heads. Then what is the probability that toss 6 will be head? Okay, so now this will consistently bias your idea. For example, if first 5 tosses are heads, then it is more likely that we have chosen coin A, correct? And then without much computing, intuitively I can show that this toss 6 equal to head will be approximately equal to 0.9. If you don't agree with me, try to do some explicit computations. I will try to insert some space and show you some kind of computations, not fully. So now let us analyze this situation, that toss 6 is a head and first 5 tosses are heads. So if you want to compute this probability, then you need to actually compute the probability. So let us take this star, let us write this as star is equal to probability that toss 6 is equal to head, and there is a head, 3, 4, 5, correct, upon probability that 5 tosses are heads. So now here one more level of investigation is required, that coin A is chosen or not, or coin B is chosen or not, correct. So that is being suppressed here, both coins can happen. So I need to further dig into this probability, that is probability that, let me not write toss 6 because it is written there, or let me rewrite it as h6, h5, h4, h3, h2 and h1 upon probability of h5, h4, H3, H2, H1. Now you look at the denominator. You look at the denominator and try to compute the probabilities. Let me insert some more space here. Okay, try to compute these probabilities. So I am writing the denominator now. Probability that H5, H4, H3, H2, H1. If I want to write this denominator, then I need to split into, now you have to consider this as a sample space. What is the sample space partitioned into? Coin A and coin B. So I will write this as probability of H5, H4 up to H1 A plus probability of H5, H4, H1 B. Correct. This is how I have used the law of total probability, theorem on total probability. Now you look at this particular expression. Given A, all these events are independent, that is known to us. Therefore, I can write this as product over I equal to 1 to 5 probability of HI given A into probability of A plus product over I equal to 1 to 5 probability of HI given B into probability of B. Now again I need to insert some space, so let me insert it. Now the idea is very clear. What is the probability of HI given A? When A is chosen, it's 0.9, right? And once it is chosen, they are independent. So it is 0.9 raised to 5 into probability of A is half plus 0.1 raised to 5 into probability of B is again half. So this is how I have computed this denominator. A similar calculation can be sought for H6. So what will that be? Now that is just a algebra. I can directly write this computation, that is 0.9 raised to 6 into half plus 0.1 raised to 6 into half upon 0.9 raised to 5 into half plus 0.1 raised to 5 into half. So if you can remove, if you can compute this, you will get an answer which is approximately equal to 0.9, little bit smaller than 0.9 but approximately equal to 0.9. Just compute and verify for yourself. This is an important illustration that how conditioning affects the probabilities. Okay. Let us now take one classical example, because we are dealing with probability. So let us now take one classical example, which is King's sibling. This is a famous example. You will find it in various textbooks. Based on different assumptions, the answers will vary for this example. So in this case, what is happening is, the king comes from a family of 2 children, and you are asked a question that what is the probability that his sibling is a female. So a natural answer to this question is, okay, so the statement in itself is ambiguous, and therefore I will make some assumptions. So assumption is that the family actually produces only 2 children. Family actually produces only 2 children, and they don't have any specific strategy. Under this situation, what is the probability that that sibling is a female? Intuitive answer you may think is half, because if the king is coming from family, then the other sibling, it is independent, and therefore the other sibling may be boy or a girl, so the probability is half. Is the answer correct? Let us analyze this. So if the king is coming from the family, then which has two children, that means there is one male, both can be males, one male, one female, or the elder one is female and then the male has happened, or both are females, right? Now the question is planned in a very tricky manner, that is, the king, who is actually the king, comes from a family of two children. That means this option is actually eliminated. This option is not there. We are not dealing with unconditional universe. We are dealing with conditional universe, because the family has produced one king and there are only two children. So now the effective sample space is this. So in this sample space, what is a probability that the sibling is a female? And these are the two outcomes that denote that the sibling is a female, and therefore in this situation the answer is 2 by 3. So we started with half, we came up with 2 by 3. Okay, now our assumption is, again we have also made an assumption that probability of male is equal to probability of female, which is equal to half. That is, nature has symmetry. This is the assumption that we have made. We assume that assumption is fair enough. Next idea is, suppose what if, because the king is coming from a family which is a royal family, and they may have a strategy, like if they want a king, they have to produce until a male is born. That may be their strategy. In that case, if their strategy is they will stop reproducing, their parents stop reproducing once a boy is born, what is the probability that the sibling is a female and they have two children? That means the elder one must be a female and the next one is boy, and that is where they have stopped. In that case, the probability that the sibling is a female is 1. So now the question in itself is ambiguous, and there can be many variations of this question which will produce different probabilities. So what is half? When you are considering unconditional, that is independence, then the answer is half. But the independence according to this question is ruled out, because the king is coming from the family. If the question is the king produces two children and they have a owner, then what is the probability? Then that unconditional thing will happen. Okay, the next is, because the king comes from that family, we are dealing with conditional universe, and therefore the probability is 2 by 3, and we are assuming that they have a policy, the family has a policy of producing two children only. This is how probability questions can be very tricky. And then this is again conditional, and the family's policy produce or reproduce until a boy, until male. If that is a policy, then definitely this is 1. So this is again conditional. So this makes our understanding clear about the conditional probability or conditional independence. So if you have any questions, you can ask during doubt clearing session. These concepts are very tricky. Unless you solve many examples, you may not have an explicit understanding of conditional probabilities or conditional independence.